Thank you so much. We do really appreciate the chance to be with all of you and sing and play. We do it at home, but our cat doesn't cry. We're going to do a little quiet time together now. So please put your body in a comfortable position. And just allow whatever you brought with you today in terms of stress, whatever your history, however that weighs on you, just breath by healing breath. See if you can release as you exhale. Releasing the past. It's as if, breath by breath, you are being reborn here on Mother's Day. So let your physical body comfortably settle. Feel that sense of renewal and potential. That sense of authentic rebirth. Breath by deep breath. And if some gratitude is in your heart for your own mother or anyone who has extended mothering energy to you, allow yourself to reflect on that at this time. So we'll take some time just with the quiet, contemplative music. Feel that gratitude and that sense of being reborn. Mother, Father, God. May we use these moments together to be more grounded in your presence. May we use our connection to Spirit and to others in our church community to renew and enliven our connection to all with love. Amen. So once again, thank you for hosting us. We're always happy to journey across the great water and be part of your Sunday. Pardon me, we've both decided to wait until late spring, early summer to get our winter colds. We related doctors. I just want to mention, it was said from the platform that our speakers and presenters change every week, and I thought, I change way more than that. So, nobody was watching, but I'm changing like all the time. I'm losing hair every week, I know that. My talk today is called Divine Mother, Every Mother. What was her flesh became your own. She gave her blood, she grew your bone. For months you swam within her tide, and then upon her hip did ride. She carried you when you were weak. She taught you how to walk and speak. She gave you rules and moral scope. She brought you chicken soup and hope. So honor her who brought you here, and love forever, Mother dear. And if you can, when you are grown, become a mother like your own. Have you ever heard a public radio show when the announcer says, "This hour's programming made possible by a grant from such and such foundation"? And has it ever occurred to you that the announcement is missing most of the story? I mean, sure, the Institute for Advances in Dental Floss or whatever paid for an hour of programming on the station. But what really made that hour possible? I think if the radio host was telling the whole truth, their announcement might go something like, "This hour of programming made possible for the Institute by cheating on your driver's test," or whatever. But then go on to say, "But seriously, everyone, what really made this hour possible were the mothers of each person who worked on today's program for their tireless, typically unrewarding, and nearly endless work of carrying a baby to term, going into what was no doubt a long and painful labor, spending their time, I mean all their nights and weekends, feeding their child, changing diapers, toilet training, teaching the child to talk, to walk, to dress themselves, to not pick their nose, or at least not where people can see, to get along with their siblings, or at least declare a truce, to ride a bike and play sports, hopefully without sustaining severe or mortal injury, helping them get through elementary school, middle school, high school, whoops, I forgot kindergarten and nursery school, ensuring they survive the social and dating scene without crises that were anything like as dramatic as a teenager thinks they are, helping them to take all the steps that launch them into the world and to a successful life, doing cool things like working on the radio program you just heard. So Mom, it's really thanks to you that we just heard this gripping documentary on the mating habits of the earthworms of Borneo, or whatever, which also have mothers, so that's a whole nother topic. There is no way, of course, that any of us could possibly be here without first of all being born. And I have it on good authority that one essential component in every birth is the presence of someone's mother. It's a scientific fact, folks. And it goes without saying that following birth, there are about 1 million things that Mom ends up doing for us, as partially outlined above. She did 1 million things. Perhaps this is a good moment, in fact, for us to do 2 things. The first is for each of us, please, to take just a moment to recognize mothers in the congregation today. So if you are a mother, whether biologically, adoptive, stepmother, blended family, what have you, and you feel comfortable in standing up, would you please do so now so we could honor you? Thank you. And secondly, we might recognize that each mother who stood up was also mothered and could be recognizing their own mother, and so forth. Now, obviously, if we keep extending this concept of who mothered whom back and back, I mean, we could kind of do the whole begat section of the Bible in reverse. So we have to cut it off somewhere. But what we are connecting with and hopefully operating from is a sense of gratitude for that person or those persons. A little more about that later, who have been mothers in each of our lives. I'd like to spend a moment talking right now about gratitude itself. Mother, please, do I have to? It doesn't take genius to see that some people are happier than other people. One thing that the science of positive psychology is now telling us that happiness is correlated with and may well be caused by a conscious practice of gratitude. It is so easy for any of us. I speak from deep personal experience to focus on what is difficult, on what we're struggling with, on what pushes our many and varied buttons. But how much are we focusing day by day, moment by moment, on what we're grateful for? Am I making you feel guilty? I think you all recognize all of this. Your speaker knows it and then forgets to practice it about 9 moments out of 10, maybe. Maybe 99 out of 100. That's why we come together, in part, to remind ourselves and each other of what's important, of what to focus on. I want to tell you about something called the Nikon gratitude practice. I'm not talking about the Nikon camera and being grateful that you have one of those because it takes better shots than your smartphone. There's a Nikon practice, it's spelled differently, N-A-I-K-A-N, which is a Japanese exercise of consciously focusing as best you can on everything that has ever been done for you or given to you. It's a structured contemplation practice in which you go on a Nikon retreat. You have breakfast and then sit in a room and try to remember everything that was done on your behalf between ages of birth and 6, just for an example. Try to think of every feeding. I mean, I know you don't consciously remember all these things, but you imagine the feedings, the diaper changes, the hugs, the moments of love, the screams and tantrums and the 3 a.m. crying being lovingly tended to, being taught to talk and walk and use the bathroom and sit at the table and ride your tricycle or your big wheel, tie your shoes, tell time, all of it. You try to think of every part you can consciously remember and simply recreate everything you know must have happened and feel grateful that a loving mother or father or brother or an aunt or a big sister or whoever was there to take care of your needs day after day when you were too young to do so for yourself. Then you have lunch and do ages 7 to 12, and so on. Now, the length of the retreat depends on exactly how old you are. Some folks would just be away for a weekend.
Some would be there for a month.
Some might be there for a month. Because we've just piled up a few more moments on the planet, right? Now, it almost sounds punishing. you go into the corner and remember all the nice things your mom and dad did for you. But the difference, of course, is that this is a practice to be done when fully adult, well, close.
Chronologically.
Fully adult some days. Self-actualized, responsible, a way to build joy and connection to those we love and are grateful for. However you'd like to do it, whether describing it with an exotic Japanese word or just thinking of it as being thankful, the message here is how can we focus more on gratitude? Because we know it's a good practice for our own mental health, for our spirit, for our community. Now, as arduous and fully committed a task as giving birth and being a biological mom is, I think a real Mother's Day celebration has room to expand that focus. There are, of course, moms who adopt children, moms who provide foster care. There are moms who parent their partner's children without any formal relationship established. There are moms, we all know them, who seem to mother the whole neighborhood, right? Everybody's always at Mrs. Beasley's house or something. But the mother function isn't, probably never was, restricted to women who are bringing up kids in families and then, or end up being a maternal magnet for all the kids on the block. Now, the mother function, when you really think about it, may not even be restricted to women, perhaps, though that's a very large topic to explore. And I think we're safe in saying, at the very least, that women are usually better at it than guys are. Ricky Minor, the musical director of American Idol, I heard in an interview, he was saying that he never knew his father, and his mother didn't raise him because she was an addict. And he was asked, well, who raised you then? And Mr. Minor said he found many people to help him along the way, and that he always sought out mentors, people to give him advice, people who could help him to find his own path. The point here is that while no healthy, whole person enters into parenting with any intent other than to do the very best they can for their child, by the same token, no parent meets 100% of their child's needs. Of course, all parents probably say something like, I'll never do X. Whatever it was that their mom and dad drank, be that dad drank too much, or one of them abused the child physically, that they got divorced, that they were overly critical, I'll never do that, we say. And then we don't drink, but we're bitter and perfectionistic. Or we never hit a kid, but we abuse them with our words. We don't get divorced, but our child grows up in a miserable kind of hostile battle zone of a home. Or to avoid being critical, we set incredibly loose boundaries so our child loses any sense of the values to follow. Mothering or fathering parenting is probably the most demanding work on this planet. No one achieves perfection. For this reason, when I celebrate Mother's Day, I don't think only of my dear mother, Maybelle. You've heard of her, Mother Maybelle Carter? My mom wasn't Mother Maybelle Carter, but she was Mother Maybelle. My mother, who listened to me recite The Walrus and the Carpenter when I was 6, and came to my school plays, basketball games. But I also think of the other mother figures in my life. My college teacher, my dear friend Leslie, who's helped me through numberless tough moments in these past 35 years or so. I think of a long-time voice teacher, Tommy, whose work is clearly not done, by the way, who accepted me and taught me without judging or shaming me, even when I came to voice lessons voice lessons. I didn't drink today, or for the past 16 years. I just had a little leftover there. When I came to voice lessons, hung over, I was talking about the topic of drinking because that was an issue. In those dark days when alcohol was like another mother to me, a dark and toxic one. I think of my own dear, sweet, and tough wife, Sally, who's nourished and challenged me through...
Mostly challenged.
Mostly challenged, through a long time. Mothering is something that grows, that happens in the aggregate, in community. For those of us who have or did have a flesh and blood mom, nothing replaces her. But so much enriches her contribution to our lives. And sometimes we find those who offer us a spiritual connection, one we may not have experienced in our family of origin. And they are like another mother or another father, another sister or brother to us. I believe this gives us an insight into the words of Jesus recorded in the 10th chapter of Matthew, where it says, Jesus was speaking to the crowd, and someone told him, your mother and your brothers are standing outside and they want to speak to you. Jesus asked, who is my mother? Who are my brothers? Then he pointed to his disciples and said, look, these are my mother and brothers. Anyone who does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. The message is that we are born, of course, of our mother, and we owe our very physical existence to her. But there is some other rich and spiritual connection that we may also be born of. That we are born again, perhaps, as the saying goes, in spirit. And that within that reality, too, we find figures who parent us, who mentor and cherish us and counsel us. Perhaps who are like a father or a mother to us as we grow in that rich other dimension. We Americans are a proud people who cherish independence. And over the years, we've developed some themes in our cultures. The self-made man. Pick yourself up by your bootstraps. March to the beat of a different drummer. None of these ideas are faulty, exactly, but they are incomplete. The truth is, we are each of us not independent. We are interdependent. Our freedom, our ability to operate effectively and craft solutions to our life problems are all contingent on our relationships with each other. We carry our parents with us in our hearts. And each of us is built not just from their DNA, but from their psyches. We've gleaned hope from our mother or courage from our father, but we may have also harvested a measure of anxiety from mom, or a portion of some hopelessness from our dad's approach. We have each of us free will and personal responsibility to put together the puzzle pieces of our lives as best we can, so that we can be strong and present for others to lean on and gain nourishment from us. When I speak of being present for others, the essence of what I'm talking about is that unselfish and nurturing connection. And I believe that's the challenge being offered to all of us on Mother's Day. As we celebrate motherhood, we may join in and contribute to the nurturing that is at the heart of it. At this time, perhaps more than ever, there is such a multitude of souls who need help. There's so much suffering to salve and wounds to staunch. Finally, it's not just the distress of our fellow creatures that summons our attention today, but the tribulation of that very soil, which is the mother of us all. It seems to me it's time for each of us to play a part in mothering Mother Earth herself, so that the fragile breath of our globe's atmosphere will remain life-sustaining for our children and grandchildren, and for all who follow us. And so may we today, in honoring and thanking our own mothers, be prepared and resolved to take on all the tasks of mothering, of parenting, all we find who toil and are heavy laden, and may we give to one another and to our birth planet herself the way a loving mother feeds her children. For what was her flesh became your own. She gave her blood, she grew your bone. For months you swam within her tide, and then upon her hip did ride. She carried you when you were weak. She taught you how to walk and speak. She gave you rules and moral scope. She brought you chicken soup and hope. So honor her who brought you here, and love forever, mother dear. And if you can, when you are grown, become a mother like your own. It's our Mother's Day message.